We are all in a battle for our minds every day. How do we distinguish between the push and pull of the Holy Spirit versus our flesh? Just like any battle, we need to be prepared, and the Bible lays out clear instructions. Get armored up. It's time to engage in spiritual warfare. The Armor of God, Shield of Faith, today on the Discipleship on Repeat podcast. All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. We're your hosts, Matt and Chris. What's up, Chris?
Hey, Matt. How are you, brother?
Doing good, man. Excited to be on here with you doing another Armor of God series. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's been really great. I'm really excited to continue on in this series with you, and just can't wait to talk to our listeners today and share about the Shield of Faith. But, man, I'll tell you what, I've been doing some battles lately with some allergies. This rain and all the stuff we've had going on is just whooping me.
Yeah, it's allergy season, man. That's just the way it is every year, right? It seems like it gets worse every year, but we got to keep grinding it out, right?
That's right. It's what the weatherman keeps telling us, global warming. So here we go.
That's right, exactly. So, hey, man, excited to be doing this another episode with you. I've really enjoyed this series. I think it's been really great for both of us to make sure that we're both doing good, and so. It's been really cool to see how it's working in both of us, don't you think?
Yeah, I completely agree. I know that this whole series has changed my life. Even just this last week, I've spent a lot of time reflecting on this series and all the different pieces of the armor that we've discussed, especially so far. And man, it's just really impacted my life and my family's lives as well.
Me too, man. Had some great discussions with my wife and other people. So that's a great segue, man. We're getting ready. Let's start this next episode. Before we do, though, remember we got something important to share. That's right. When you hear that sound, folks, it's time for the left-handed shake of the week, and we've got some other great stories for you that are just going to tie right into this. In fact, I'm going to let you go first this time, Chris, if that's all right,
man. That's great. Hey, thanks.
Yeah.
Hey, so I just wanted to talk about for my left-handed shake this week. I'm a government employee. In this current situation that's going on in the country, they've been doing a lot of cuts amongst us government employees, and a lot of rumors, a lot of craziness, a lot of hearsay, and just a lot of fear amongst the employees. And so there's been a lot going on there. And in our house, my wife and my middle daughter have been really concerned about my job and me being able to stay employed. And so, they were really afraid. And so, that's really, if I lost my job, that's a huge impact to our family. And, if I'm honest, I was pretty afraid as well. And so we took the time to sit down and to talk about that and to spend some time in prayer and to just kind of step back and look at what's going on and what are we missing here.
Yeah.
And so what we figured out was we kind of needed two things. We need to walk in our faith and keep believing that God's going to provide for us,
right?
Which He will. And the other thing was that we need to have a plan. Mm-hmm. And so be smart with our money and to be intentional with it. And so we've done that. We've been very intentional about putting money away, where we're spending that money, what we're spending it for, all of those things. Yeah. And so we had that great conversation internally in our family, and we were able to share that vulnerability with each other in our family, which is great. I think we should be vulnerable inside of our families.
Yeah, setting a good example there.
Yeah, and exactly. We're setting a great example for our kids, and it's strengthening our marriage at the same time. And so that's fantastic. But it was really cool when our life group came over, and several of the other families in that life group also have family members that are government employees.
Yeah.
And so we're not of all the same political affiliation or whatever. And that wasn't the focus. The focus was we're all in this together. And so it was so cool that, I kind of led with some of that vulnerability in that situation. Hey, in my job, we're talking about this. And in our family, this is how we're handling it. And we're living out that faith and having that plan. Mm-hmm. God didn't tell us to just sit back and watch something happen. He told us, we need to be walking that out. So, that opened that door for that vulnerability within our group. And so for us to have that conversation back and forth and to grow stronger from that, closer together, closer in our marriages, closer in those relationships. It was just such a building of our faith and realizing like we're not in this alone. Like the enemy likes to trap us and make us think that we're alone, but knowing that we're in that community together was so important.
Yeah, that was a great night. I remember that. I mean, you laid the shield down right there in front of everybody, man, and that was, I think, that really it brought a lot of more connection amongst the group, and other people were willing to lay down the shield as well, and that's the whole spirit of the left-handed shake. And I think we grew as a group that night.
Absolutely.
Because of what you started, and that's the whole point of this left-handed shake, folks, is to take initiative to lay down some vulnerability so you can receive that from others, and we can all be in a better place. So thanks for sharing, Chris. The story I have this week is actually one that kind of fits this Shield of Faith episode as well. And it's a little bit backwards, actually. This is actually me receiving the left-handed shake. So when I was going through my chemotherapy, it was like I don't know if it was the very first day I had my first chemotherapy session, first or second. It was right at the beginning. I met this gentleman who I'm going to call Bernie. He was really just an angel. I think God sent an angel to me and my wife that day when I met him, just to see him and his upbeat attitude. And I knew, and I think I've mentioned him a little bit before, I think in some of these episodes, but I really just wanted to highlight him this week because what he showed me, we were in a state of panic and in a state of fear and worry, as anybody would be as you're going through a cancer diagnosis, especially at the beginning. Yeah. And to see him, he was an older gentleman. He had been going through chemotherapy for years, and he was going to for the rest of his life due to the way that what he actually has. So, and to see him and his positive outlook and upbeatness, and everybody there knew him. He was giving high fives and bringing coffee and donuts and he's like nobody. I didn't expect that, Right. I didn't expect to see that at all. I mean, and I knew deep, and once I, got to talk to him and everything, I knew that he was going through some really tough times, but that didn't shake his faith, and he wanted to share that with others. It was very apparent, and he shared that with me and my wife and others around, of course. And we'd started to see him just about because I'd go every couple of weeks, and I would see him just about every time. And we just always had great conversations. I think he was placed there, I believe, in my season going through all that, just to show that God was with me the whole time. And that it was okay to be vulnerable. It was okay to be scared sometimes, and it allows us to really build our faith and learn more about God and what He can do for us and how He helps us. So he was just a great experience with Bernie. Never forget him. I talk to him every now and then still. And certainly hope he's doing good. And hoping he's listening in. But I just want everybody to know that it's not necessarily you that's going to be reaching out with the left-handed shake. We certainly encourage you to do that. We want you to be vulnerable first, but sometimes you have to be just aware that God's going to send somebody to you too, and it might be interrupting your day. It might be when you don't expect it. But I think it's important that we have that mindset that God can happen at any time. I love the story. I think you've mentioned it on a few episodes past about you never let anybody. You don't let. You don't rob somebody of giving a blessing.
Don't rob their blessing.
Exactly. And this is a great example of that, man. It was just a great opportunity he wanted to be a blessing to me and my wife, and so I let him. Right. And it truly blessed my life. So be open, folks, not only to be that one to stand out first and give that left-handed shake and stick that left hand out, but also be available to somebody else when you least expect it, because you just never know. And that's the Spirit of the Lord, and that's what we got to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, be ready to return that left-handed shake.
That's right. Yeah. That's right, man. Sometimes it's going to come to you first. So I thought it was a great story, and just really lines up well with this episode on the shield of faith, because how important is faith in life? It's just so important for us to have access to faith through grace, which we're going to talk about a lot today. So that's going to lead us right into our topic. So before we jump into a lot of that here, of course, though, I want to, we need a little recap of kind of where we are on everything. So I got some notes here from last week. So we're going to start out with, why, of course, do we need this armor of God, right? So to remind everybody out there, we need that armor for protection from the enemy, because our enemy, as it states in John 10:10, wants to steal, kill, and destroy us. And as it reads here in Ephesians 6:10 through 15, which I'm about to read here in just a second, that we are fighting against spiritual forces, as Paul reiterates in 2 Corinthians 10:3 through 5. But let me read that Ephesians 6:10 through 16 if everybody's following along. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's evil schemes. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Therefore, put on the full armor of God, so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground, and after you have done everything to stand firm then, with the belt of truth buckled around your waist, with the breastplate of righteousness in place, and with your feet fitted with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace. In addition to all this, take up the shield of faith, which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. So remember, folks, we want to, we got to put on our armor first, right? We got to have,
that's right.
As Paul states there, you can't, what do you say, in addition to all this, I like how he says that. So after you've got your belt, your plate, and your shoes on, then you pick up the shield of faith, right? We're going to talk more about that in a minute, but get your armor on first. You have it all forward facing. Be in community, of course, to have like-minded people around you to help protect your six. And lastly, to practice over and over again and repeat that. So that's why we need this. And Chris, you've got some definitions and some teachings for us here, so I'm going to leave that over to you, brother.
Thanks, man. So just like every episode, I think it's really important that we get the good, solid definition of what we're going to be talking about today, and that's faith. And so faith is kind of a hard term to define with like one singularity.
It is.
And so it's kind of, I'll read it to you, what I've got written down. And this is the best encompassing definition I kind of have right now. But it works well with what we're presenting today. And so just know that faith is very broad and very diverse. So just bear with me as we're getting through this definition here of faith today.
Absolutely.
So faith is the reliance on God, our belief, conviction, aligned to the truth, dependence, taking action on truth. And so basically faith is applying truth to situations. And so with that definition, I just want us to kind of keep that in the back of our mind as we're moving forward on into the rest of this episode. But before we got too far, I kind of wanted to talk for a second about the shields, because Paul was talking about these, describing this Roman soldier, this legionnaire, and he's talking about all the armor that this guy's going to be wearing. And so as we've already talked through the belt, the breastplate, and the shoes, and those are all three very important pieces that we should be wearing all the time. You're not taking those off.
No, 100% all the time.
That's right. That's right. But as we're getting into this shield, I think it's important for the listener to understand how big this shield was.
Yeah.
And so the shield that Paul is describing here, it's about 2.5 feet wide by about 4 feet tall.
Yeah, wow.
This thing's big. It weighs about 22 pounds.
Jeez.
And so this guy's going to hoist this around with an arm, typically was strapped on his arm about where his elbow is. And so that way he can hold that kind of weight. Mm-hmm. But it's big. It's designed for him to be able to set it down on the ground and like crouch behind it for protection.
Yeah.
It was typically when they would go into battle, it was covered in leather, and then they would soak it with water. And so just as you read, those fiery darts are coming. Yeah. It's going to help extinguish those darts or those arrows.
Yeah, if it was wet, it would be better at doing that.
That's right. A little more fire retardant.
Yeah.
Also, the shield is designed the way they're curved in the way as big as they are. They're designed for community, like you mentioned. So those soldiers would be in formation side by side as they marched into wherever they're going. So they would have their shields in front whenever they got to the enemy or in range of the enemy. They would put their shields up to face them. And so they would get those shields so tight together that they interlocked. And so when they did that, it made like an impenetrable barrier, like a wall, like a mobile wall that they could put between them and the enemy. And so I thought that was really, you can go look it up on the internet. It looks really cool on how they make that work. But it's also used to ward off those attacks, but you're not going to carry it in front of you all the time. Like, you can't hold 22 pounds out in front of your body for very long. Anybody that goes to the gym and works out, hold a 25-pound dumbbell straight out in front of you. It's going to wear you out very quickly.
Yeah.
And so, these guys might be in like premium shape, but 22 pounds straight out in front of you 2 feet by 4 feet, that's a lot.
Yeah, I like how you say it when the enemy's close, when you're in range, So I think that, we talked to, you and I both, we talked to a lot of guys and a lot of people as well. And the shield of faith is probably seems like one of the most talked about, pieces of armor, because it's so vivid. It's so, everybody's seen all the movies and everything, right? People say, I got my shield up all the time. I'm like, and I've heard people say this, right? We both have. And you do need to have it up from time to time. But if you have it up all the time, what does that mean? What does that indicate? Well, it can be blinding, right? I mean, you can't see where you're going.
That's right.
And if you read what Paul says there, in addition to, if you don't have all the other armor on, then you're going to be with the shield up the whole time,
right?
Because you got nothing else, right? So, so if you're in a position where you're consistently lifting your shield up and you're keeping it there, and your arm's getting tired, check your other pieces of armor, right? Where's those shoes at? Where's the belt at?
Where's that truth and righteousness at? Yeah,
exactly. So, I think that's a great analogy right there, because, if you got no radar, you got no vision, if you're holding that shield up all the time. So it's only supposed to be used at certain times.
That's right. Yeah. There's no way those guys could march with that effectively in front of them.
Yeah.
And if they did, then their marching would be extremely slow.
Yeah.
And these guys were the most battle-ready army in the world at that time. And so this weapon, or this defense, this shield, helped make them that tough army that was ready to go. And so there's no way they could walk with that up all the time.
No, and I think that's why Paul used this shield analogy, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think if we were trying to give an analogy for today, right? Like, I think you and I, as we've researched this, we've had some good discussion about, like, what's a great analogy for this. And I think, if you and I went down to work on your car today, and you got a flat tire, we're not going to break out a screwdriver or a hammer,
right,
or a pair of pliers to take a tire off.
No.
Like that's not the right tool. If you were trying to work on the electrical system, you would get out like a multimeter or something like that. You're not going to bring vice grips to work on your electrical system.
No monkey wrench. You needed to put a car stereo in.
That's right. And so I think what Paul's showing us here is you got to have the right tool for the job.
Yeah.
And so bringing your shield with you when you're walking into that battle and having it battle ready, it's at your side, it's strapped to your arm, ready to go.
Yeah. But
you're walking in those shoes of peace. You have the breastplate of righteousness on. You've got the truth around your waist. You're ready to go with those three. That shield's ready to go as well at that point.
Yeah, too, another thing, if you have your shield up all the time, like we just talked about in left-handed shake, how approachable are you going to be? How can God use you? If you're on the defense all the time, can't see where you're going, got no radar, got no truth, got not living in righteousness, what use are you?
Right.
I mean, you might as well be living in a cave or something like that, just trying to, because you can't step out of the cave because all the fiery darts come at you, because you got they keep coming because you don't have the rest of your armor on.
That's right.
So,
that's right.
Yeah. So I that's great. I love these analogies that Paul uses here. I think those are fantastic, man. So, but let's talk more about what's the important. Faith has to be aligned to God's truth for it to be effective.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's right. So I think what we need to kind of focus on for a minute is, as Christians, we're believers. And so that's kind of what faith is. When you look at Hebrews 11:1,
Yep.
it talks about faith is the confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we don't see. And so we're stepping out in faith. You may not be able to see it, but we're stepping out knowing that God's got us, and we're going to believe that he does, and we're going to believe that he is who he says he is. And so if we're believers, then we're believing that Jesus is the Son of God, that he died for our sins, that he was resurrected 3 days later, and that we, because of our faith and belief in him, we're co-heirs to the kingdom. And so as we believe in that, that should change every part of our lives. And so that's the basic start of our faith, is believing in him, and that's putting that faith into us that we need to have ready.
Mm-hmm. Acceptance of grace.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. And so if we're not believing in Jesus and believing those things, then what are we believing?
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot going on around us, and so believing in Jesus is like that holy faith. Believing in something else going on, that's like a faith in the world, and that's not in Jesus. And if you're not having that holy faith, you're not saved.
Right.
And so I think that that's important, that we kind of make that distinction. Like, you may think that you're having that belief in Jesus, but if you don't really have that belief in Jesus, you're thinking something else more worldly, maybe you're not saved. And so I think that you need to be stepping into that faith a little bit more. Yeah. It says that in Ephesians 2, it says we're saved by grace through faith. There's that grace and faith again. In Romans 10, it says that we have to declare Jesus with our mouth and believe that he was raised and profess our faith to be saved. And faith comes through hearing, and hearing through the word. That's Romans 10. And so I think that those things kind of help establish that baseline as believers for us. That's where our faith is firmly rooted is in Jesus. And if it's not there, then we need to get it there. Yes,
we do. You got to have it. You got to have the belt on. You got to have your other armor on. Otherwise, what are you putting your faith in? Right.
That's right.
So
that's right.
Yeah. That's really what faith is. And really, we have all the faith that we could ever need, really, right? I mean, as Jesus said, all we need is the faith of a mustard seed.
That's right.
Right? So it's not, we don't need more faith. We just need to learn how to work the faith and exercise the faith that we already have.
Yeah. And I think what we'll see in the next part of our discussion here is really, it kind of breaks down to a couple of questions. What's the shield for? Like, what are we going to use it for? And how do we use it? And so what I kind of wanted to start with is that a good reminder on this verse is that it's blocking all the enemy arrows, all those enemy darts towards us. Mm-hmm. So what does that mean? It means that the enemy's going to keep shooting at you. Right. And he's not going to try to hit you straight on. If you're dealing with a problem of lust or doubt or something like that, that's where he's going to aim. To try to hit you in that vulnerable spot, in that weakness. And so knowing that, put your shield there, right? Like, hold the shield up to him there. And so we're going to talk about that in a second. But those kind of arrows that the enemy's shooting, they look like pride. They look like lust, unbelief, distrust, doubt. They look like lies or temptation, persecution, or even false teaching. And so I think one of the biggest attacks that the enemy uses, he used it right off the bat, the very first sin right there in Genesis 3, when he's talking to Eve, he instilled doubt in Eve. And so he took that doubt. He even tried that on Jesus. Over in Matthew 4, 1 through 11, he's talking about Jesus has been out in the desert fasting for 40 days. He's tired, and he's hungry, and he's vulnerable. And that's when the enemy came to him at his weakest point and started questioning him and trying to make him question, is he really the Son of God? And so I think that he's trying to instill that doubt in Jesus' mind. Of course, Jesus fended him off with the shield of faith and with the word. Mm-hmm. And so I think that we have to kind of understand that that's the kind of attack that we're going to be looking at. But we can take courage and take faith, take encouragement, and just know that those arrows are all going to get blocked by the shield, and that they can't penetrate through that shield. So when you hold that shield up in front of you, when it's the appropriate time, when you're facing that enemy, you put that shield up, you know that the darts aren't coming through. It says in 1 John 5:4 that we're overcomers.
Yes.
And in Galatians 3, it says that we live and work in our faith. And so, in one of our other episodes, is Faith Enough, we talked about this verse a lot. James 2, our faith is displayed by our works, right? And so from out of that faith, you're starting to see your works come across. And so that's where we move into how do we use that shield? We got to take it up. And so that means that we're going to point that towards the enemy. We're going to block wherever we need that protection, the weak vulnerability areas, we're going to block right there. We're going to actively use that. So we're going to take God's truth guided by the peace and the righteousness of works, right? So we're going to use that faith to do righteous works, acting on the truth there. So then, and finally, like I said earlier, it impacts all of our life, every aspect of our life. And so how do we grow that faith? We grow that faith by exercising, right? By working it out. And so that was one of the things I wanted to share with you, Matt. A quick testimony. When I was just starting to get stronger in my faith, was going through a really hard time. My grandpa, he'd been an evangelist like all my life.
Yeah.
And that's all I knew him as, was an evangelist. And so one day he's sitting at my parents' house, and we're talking and just kind of hanging out. And it had to be the Spirit just kind of prompted me, like, you need to ask him. And so I said, hey, Grandpa, how do you grow faith? Like, you have this amazing faith. How do I get mine to grow that much? Like, how do I grow my faith out like yours? And he said, well, you got to work out. And just simply kind of like,
just like you want to grow anything.
Yeah, you got to work out.
You got to work it out.
You got to work and stretch and tear that muscle and put it to work. And so that just really made a huge impact on me to realize, like, it was so simply stated, you just got to work out.
Yeah.
And so from that, I walked away going, wow, that was really cool. And then my mind immediately goes, how do you do that?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, how do you work your faith? And so I think we're going to get to that in just a second. But, I think that as we're working on knowing when and where to point this shield, we always got to be ready, like we were talking about with the other three pieces. But, I think as we move into our discussion here, those workouts that we're talking about, that faith workout, that looks like you need to be in prayer, right?
Yeah.
You need to be studying your Bible. You need to be in community and fasting. I know that's kind of a strange topic for a lot of folks, is fasting. Not
necessarily food either.
Right. We're not fasting to lose weight here. We're fasting to draw closer.
Right. It's anything you put ahead of God, right?
Yeah.
It could be social media. It could be your kids. Don't fast too much for your kids. They probably they might not need it all. Hey, are we gonna eat it all? It's been 3 days, Dad.
That's right.
But anything you've kind of elevated like that, and you can fast from.
That's right.
Let God know that, hey, I'm willing to put this aside because I don't want it interrupting our relationship.
Yeah.
So, and you're right. It's just like any other muscle, the faith muscle. You gotta stretch it out. You gotta break it down. And you got to nourish it too,
Yeah.
So it'll heal. You got to get your protein shake afterwards.
That's right.
So after you stretch it, after you've stretched yourself through those through those methods, we're gonna recap those here in just a minute for y'all. But you got to nourish it, So you're gonna get more knowledge, and then you're only gonna continue to get stronger, and that muscle's gonna grow over time. So it's just we talked about it before. That it's more of the. I'm literally just labeling this on the spot, but it's like the path of the righteous. It starts from grace, right? We got to accept the free gift of grace, which leads us to learning the truth about God and who He is and what He's capable of, which leads us to our faith. So we have to, have faith in Him because we have the knowledge and we receive that grace. And in turn, our only acceptable answer is to provide works for God, as you said there in James 2, right? So, we can't get them out of order. If we're working to get grace, that's you're not. It's not you're doing out of obligation, right?
Right.
So, we want to do works because of our faith. And it's the same way forward as it is backwards, So if you count it from the back, you have works because of your faith because of the truth you've learned, and then truth because of the grace you've received. So that's the path of the righteous. So if you guys remember one thing from this episode, I would encourage you to remember that, just because you're going to be probably at all points of your life, you're going to be somewhere in that little. It's like we need like a little meter,
Right.
If we all had this little hand meter we could walk around with and say, okay, is it to the left? Is it to the right? Is it in the middle? Where do I need to work at? Where am I at right now, God? Well, let me pull up my little meter, my little schematic here or whatever, and let's see where I'm at. Okay, it looks like I need more truth. Okay, I need that. That's why my faith is low, because I don't have enough truth.
That's right.
Or, I don't have enough works. Well, I need to check my faith then, So, but that's something that God showed me this week, and I think that's just a really good analogy. I hope folks understand that. So,
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I liked how you paired that really nicely, as we were discussing this earlier, with that Romans 5. Man, that's so powerful, and I just accept grace and truth to access the faith, to access our works.
That's right. Paul said it there in Romans 5. Got to have access to faith. Through grace. So that's great, man. So these are all great things. So let's unpack it now that we've kind of labeled what faith is and give everybody a good understanding of what it is. Chris, let's talk about. Let's break it down a little bit. We talked some already about some of the common things that that worldly faith is. Right. We talked a lot about what holy faith is. Let's define the opposite of that. Worldly faith. You mentioned several of those already. Money and science and power, and what were some other things you mentioned there?
Right, government, or even your feelings. Or you put faith in your feelings.
Yeah, exactly. Right. This is my faith, my truth. Right.
Right.
Well, that's all going to lead towards the worldly faith. Which is not. It's of this world. That's right. It's not holy. So we don't want that. But why do people do that? You think? I mean, why do we put our faith in some of these things?
Yeah, I think.
Why is it so easy, right? It seems so easy that our enemy just lays it out there so easy for us.
He sure does. For me, I think sometimes, like I shared in the left-handed shake, sometimes, we're scared.
Yeah.
He puts that fear into us, right? Or we allow that fear to enter our thought process instead of stepping behind our shield of faith.
Yeah.
Like, fear is a pretty good arrow to shoot at somebody.
Oh yeah.
And I think in all of our cases, at some point, most of us are going to be concerned about our income and our finance. And so I think that's there. That's a simple arrow to shoot. And, if I can impact your finances, I might make you start to question your faith a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, I might get you completely focused on your bank account.
Yeah.
And so I think, back to that left-handed shake I was sharing, my wife and I had those conversations. Like, yeah, we need to have that faith, and we need to believe that God's going to provide for us like he always does. Mm-hmm. We also need to have a plan, and it's not so heavily focused on relying on how much money can we save. We're still doing our giving, and we're still being generous and exercising that faith.
Yeah.
But we're also being prepared. God wasn't telling Abraham to just beat it and not take nothing with him. Right, like he was moving a whole camp with him when he was moving around. Yeah. Same with Moses and all of the Israelites in the desert. Like, they were moving everything. They weren't just leaving it all every time and up and going.
Packed it all up, man.
Like, they were going prepared.
Yeah.
And so I think we have to kind of keep that in mind, because I don't necessarily want to be blinded by my faith and have that shield up in front of me completely where I can't see. Yeah. I need to walk towards the battle, but I have to be prepared for that at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great way to put it, man. You're right. We can't have blind faith either, because if you have blind faith, you don't have your shoes on, right?
Right.
So, but that's great. I think that pride, our own ego. I mean, and I think we just believe we believe our own senses. It's what we see, what we hear. It's just thrown at us all day, messages, just even driving down billboards down the road. Every little thing, is meant to distract you, right?
Right.
We trust our eyes, sometimes you got to shut your senses off, and that's where I think it goes back to having that prayer time and that starts your day off, to remind yourself, like, hey, God, I'm going to get bombarded today, just like I will be tomorrow, and I was yesterday, and every day after that. What's my plan? Protect me, help me use my armor the best of my abilities. This is custom fit armor we have. It's made specifically for each individual. Let's use it, right? So, because we need to have that. So that's great. That's good topics there. Good chat. Let's also talk about, these flaming darts, right? These can be big things in life, obviously, you lose your job, health scare, some big thing. We talked about both of those already, but there's also some other common flaming darts the enemy shoots in our lives. Let's talk about that, because we want to make sure everybody's informed and thinking about all the different types of ways we could be attacked, right?
Yeah, I think some of the things we talked about, just like I shared with Eve and with Jesus, right? The enemy loves throwing that doubt in there.
Yeah,
he loves leading with doubt. If he can just twist that truth just a little bit where it's not fully true and make you question and have that doubt, he's starting to get a foothold there. I think footholds lead to lies, so you'll see that. And I know fending off lies can be really hard and challenging. And so continuing to lean in, and we say that a lot as believers: lean into your faith, Like we said, you got to have those other three pieces on all the time. And so if you don't have those on, lean into your shield's not going to be very steady.
No.
And then also, like, that kind of goes into the persecution, right? You're getting lies told about you or persecuted or things like that. I think that's where having those three other pieces of armor on first, and then stepping behind that shield and firmly planting that thing down, knowing that thing's going to block every arrow.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of where we need to remind ourselves to stand, because even when we hear things, I read earlier that faith comes through hearing the word, hearing the truth. And it comes out of that truth. That's Romans 10:17.
Yeah.
And so we need to be completely firmly have that truth around our waist, standing in that, knowing, like, I know what the truth is. We talked about that a couple episodes back. With the bank tellers, they know what the truth is. They know what it really looks like. And so I think that's where knowing that truth will help us identify false teachers and know, that's bogus. It'll help eliminate and identify those temptations. We know where that truth is. And so I think those are some of the things that we can battle with, some of those arrows that we can do battle against.
Yeah, those are all great examples. I'll give our listeners a few other here too. I think that some of that are super common in the world today. We've mentioned it in previous episodes recently. Lust is definitely, I think that's, if you look at just modern advertising, that's the enemy's right up in his wheelhouse there to get people distracted and causing fear. Also, vanity. It's huge, I think that's, everybody has an image, being, comparing ourselves to others, envy, really all 7 deadly sins, you could say, or to sum it up, the most, what are the most common flaming darts? Wherever you are weak.
That's
frankly, because our enemy will search for your weaknesses. And he will focus on them repeatedly, time and time again, until you've shorn up your armor. And even then, he's going to come back to double check down the road just to make sure.
That's right.
He's going to double check you and triple check you. So, so anywhere that could go on, those are common flaming darts. So I would encourage you guys out there as listeners to think about, where you're at in some of these topics. And there's a long list. We're in the effort of time, we can't go over every single one, but those are some great things here. Also wanted to talk a little bit about, lastly here about how can we take up the shield of faith and stand firm when there are attacks in our lives causing this fear, worry, and anxiety. This kind of goes into our live it out that we're about to talk about here, man. But how do we do that in today's world? Let's talk about that.
Yeah. I think one of the things we have to realize right off the bat is know that you're in enemy territory.
Yeah.
And be ready, right? And so we've already kind of discussed through that. But I think when you start seeing the things going on around you, right, you may not be able to see the archer that's shooting at you, right? In my mind, I picture that Roman soldier aggressing like a town or a castle or something like that. And these guys are up on the top lobbing these arrows down.
Yeah.
And so you may not be able to identify where that arrow exactly is coming from, but like, it's kind of like a spidey sense. You kind of know that's called the Holy Spirit. And he's going to tell you, be ready. And how does he do that? It's through that peace, that radar, like we've talked about in the last episode, knowing like, hey, I need to be so in tune with the Holy Spirit here and being in the Word that he's speaking to me and I can kind of sense that. Sometimes it's the near miss shot, right? That may ricochet off your other armor or hit the ground in front of you and you're like, whoa, they're shooting at me.
Yeah.
I know that happened to me in paintball bunches of times.
Right.
Just see the ball zip by your head and you're like, whoa, that was close, Yeah. And yeah, you definitely wish you had a shield in paintball. But here we have that shield of faith. And so I think we just need to, once you can identify when you're around non-believers, be ready. They're not necessarily willing participants, but they may unknowingly participate in some of those arrows getting shot at you. So I think you have to be kind of on your toes there and be ready to go. And as we're talking about this, you're bringing that shield of faith in front of you during the battle, but we're also bringing the shoes of peace, which are the gospel. We're bringing that to all of those around us. And so be armed with that. Be ready to share. Know where your truth is, and know that we're acting in that righteousness.
Yeah. In other words, have your armor on. Have your other 3 pieces of armor on, and really the rest of the armor too, which we're going to get about it in future weeks here. But yeah, having all your armor on, having the belt on, having the breastplate on, having the shoes on, that's how you hold up the shield.
That's right.
So if you're concerned you can't do it, then make sure you have the rest of the armor on. It's going to be fully capable, and
right.
stand confident in it. Listen, this is your 2025. I mean, you're not the first person, I can promise you, that's dealt whatever problem you're dealing with. Somebody else has done it, and they've overcome it. And they've overcome it through these ways. These ways are tried and tested over centuries. So let's put it to work and have confidence in it, and just be prepared. If you're concerned about drinking, then don't go to the party. Right. If you're on a budget, you don't have the money, don't go out shopping with your girlfriends. I mean, just be smart about things. That's if you have your shoes on in those 2 examples, then you shouldn't be in those situations. So, like I said, just have your other armor on. That's going to help you. That's going to help you hold up the shield and overcome fear, worry, and anxiety.
Yeah, for sure.
So this has been great, man. I've really enjoyed this. We're going to talk about, lastly here, how to live it out and how you guys can live through this. We've been kind of going through that already, but we're going to sum it up for you guys here and wrap it up soon. But this first one, Chris, let's talk about what's the first thing we can do to live this out?
Yeah, man, I think the first live it out bullet for the number 1 for the week, get out and get some faith exercise.
That's right, man.
So we got to stretch and grow that faith, man. That's right.
Stretch and flex.
That's right. We already mentioned it earlier. Get your faith workout on, right? Yep. So that means that looks like prayer, Bible study, be in community. Man, faith is contagious. So be in community. Let's be fasting, obedience, gratitude. Our generosity is a huge faith builder.
Yeah. Absolutely, generosity.
And take that risk in faith. If God's telling you that you need to give that extra cash, give the extra cash. If he's telling you to stop and help somebody, stop and help somebody.
Right.
Let that faith grow.
That's right. We live with a God. Our God is abundant, so he'll just replace whichever you've done 10 times over,
That's right.
That's a great number 1. Number 2 would be to check your shield. Is your other equipment on? In other words, right? And have the right tool for the job, right? So we want to make sure we can't fight truth with the shield. We can't be righteous with the shield. The shield is for defense, and it's our faith. It's a shield made of faith, not So we got to make sure we got that on. And what's our third reason, Chris?
And finally, our third one is just like I just mentioned. We got to use that shield of faith in community.
That's right.
Those soldiers were standing side by side. We need to be standing side by side with other believers. Like I said, that faith is contagious. So if your faith's wavering a little bit right now and you're a little weak, you need to be standing side by side with somebody whose faith is strong. And they're standing strong in that faith right next to you. You can lean on and trust each other. And so I think that's really important for us to be able to do that, to step into that, and really rely on that community of believers around us.
That's right. You got to have other people around you, locking arms with you, So if you're not hanging with the right people, I mean, sure, you got to have some people that you're speaking into. We've talked about many times. You need a Paul and a Timothy. I get it. But you can't have all Timothys. You can't have all Pauls. You got to have a good mix. So, if you're struggling because you're around all the wrong people all the time, then you need to probably look at finding some different friends, or at least spend less time with those people. Try to be the light to those people.
That's right.
And not let them bring you down.
Yeah, that's right.
So you got to have your armor on, man. Check your shield.
That's
right, brother. So, man, I really enjoyed this episode with you, man. This has been another great episode of the Armor of God series. I really hope everybody out at home is learning from this as much as we are. We hope you're out there living it up and living it out like we talk about each week. We're continue to be excited about the podcast. Everybody, we really appreciate all the positive feedback we've been getting from everybody. I know you've been getting a lot of good feedback from your folks too, Chris. So it's been great watching how everybody's growing from it and loving it. So we're going to keep doing it. We're going to keep going out there. We're going to keep doing it. We're going to next week. We got another Armor of God series coming at you guys soon. So we just want you guys to keep living it out. Let us know how we can pray for you guys. Give us feedback when you can. And in the meantime, though, keep grinding.